Hi, I'm Sherry Winston. Welcome to Uncorked, where tonight there's not a cork, it's more of a sipping situation. I had a not so great day, so I wanted to top it off with something that sparkles and makes me smile. Enter Casabigo tequila. But that's not the focus right now. I am so happy that you have returned, if you have returned, and I am glad to meet you if you are new. My goal is to write a novel over the next several months, that a style of novel that I've never written before, a cozy mystery. I'm a children's author. I've never written an adult novel, and I've wanted to since I was a kid. So I've given myself this time and this opportunity, and even though I'm fulfilling other writing obligations, projects that I love and that I can't wait to have out in the world to share with you, writing this cozy mystery novel is a lifetime goal. So I've been working on that, and I hope you have too. And so tonight, I am going to share with you, while we're all comfy, I hope we're all comfy in our PJs, and we've got something to drink, tea, coffee, juice, something stronger. I'm going to talk about how 3 of the books that I read or listened to in the past week have impacted how I'm going to approach my writing. And I'm going to give you 3 tips that I attempted to give you in the last video, and somehow the tangent took over. So welcome. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you please. I would greatly appreciate it. Making these little videos keeps me happy, and I hope I am offering something that will help put a smile on your face too. So come on in. Let's get started. Let's get started. Now, these are lessons I've learned from the books that I discussed in my last video. And the first up is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Now, if you might remember, if you saw it, if not, I'll leave a link down below. Rock, Paper, Scissors was a very twisty-turny book. And the lesson that it taught me is about how to expertly alternate points of view, or POVs. Alice does a fantastic job of this, not only in alternating back and forth, but in allowing the device to be integral to how she tells the story. So she's not just switching back and forth for the exercise of it, or, you know, you want to hear this guy or that guy. I mean, it goes deeper than that, and I can't tell you how it goes deeper than that, because then I would spoil the book, and I don't want to do that. But it's one of the few times when an author that I've read has illustrated how form can be integrated to have an impact on the narration, how the two go together. They're not, you know, it's not like, they're not separate. So I found that to be very exciting. I don't see incorporating the device into my mystery novel, but reading her book has given me another idea for my for a future kid book, well, for teens. And so, you know, it's an idea that I've had in the back of my head, and I didn't know exactly what to do with it. And so some of the things about how she constructed her POV, her alternating points of view, I find might work for the project that I'm working on. Again, not taking her, because she does something very specific, and again, I can't tell you what it is because then I would spoil the book. But it's just an excellent use of that device, and it's done in a way that I haven't necessarily seen. So bravo, Alice, and thank you for giving me something to think about. Now, last time I also talked about an author called M.W. Craven, and he has a series of books called the Washington Poe Series. And Washington Poe is a police procedural. They work for a large anti-criminal violence, something like that, organization in the UK. And he is aided by a very genius or ingenious, computer savvy, that doesn't even begin to say it. She's a maths genius, Tilly Bradshaw. And the interplay between the two of them is just precious. I mean, the books are so dark that if you didn't have the back and forth between Poe and Tilly, I just think you might sink into a dark place. You know, they could really take you to a dark place. And instead, Craven allows us to have levity when it can help bring us out of a dark place. And then he knows how to construct a scene to deep dive us into the darkest parts of humanity. So I really, really love that. I love how fast-paced his books are. But what stuck out to me the most, or what sticks out the most, because the book I just finished, was called The Mercy Chair. The book before that is The Botanist, and the book before that is The Curator. Now, he uses similar devices in all of them, but their plots, the plotting is wildly different. And one thing I've learned in reading him recently, this year, I only started reading him in 2026, but what I've learned from him is not to fear the deep dive in your research. When I was a journalist, that was one of my favorite parts of the job. I loved doing research and looking into things and, you know, going down the rabbit holes before Google was even Google. So that shows you a little something about my age. But anyway, Craven's ability to immerse us in this information, whether it's about religion or technology or medicine, he does it in a manner that allows him to give us all this information, but it never feels like an info dump. You know, if you've ever read a book where you're going along with the story, with the narration, and then they've got something to tell you, and so it's just all this information, and then you feel like putting the book down because your head hurts. He doesn't do that. It is interwoven. Again, like Feeney, I have to say, his plot structure is very much enmeshed with the story that he's telling. Not his plot structure, his book structure. How he tells the story. It's very deliberate and very, I mean, you know from looking at this, from reading his books, that when he sits down with that manuscript, he takes ownership of it, and he probably does drafts and drafts until he gets that outline to be what he wants, and then he dives into the story. I don't know this for sure. I don't know M.W. Craven. I know very little about him because, as I said, he's a new author to me, and I've probably read 4 of his books in the last 4 months. Yes, since the beginning of the year. So he's a very new to me author, but he is becoming an auto-buy, someone who I'm curious to know, what is he doing now? What is he relaying to us now? So one of the ways that I used referencing, like in a manner similar to his, or research, is in my latest book, Quest of the Diamond Princess. There is a theme of ancient Africa. And I really went there with the research. I mean, I spent hours and hours on YouTube and at the bookstore and at the library, and I have all sorts of books and tomes about ancient Africa, because my character is related to a king from the 25th dynasty, Taharka. And I have to tell you that some of the things about the pharaohs and the African pharaohs, I sort of heard whispers of in my adulthood. But one of the things that struck me when I was working on my novel was, when I was a kid, the only Black people in history books were enslaved people. And I thought, what a difference it could have made if I had also been introduced to Black pharaohs and African kings in Egypt. So, that's my little soapbox spiel, but it was fascinating, the things that I learned, the discoveries I made, and I was excited to share that information in my book. And I hope that when young people read the book, that they can find themselves in it too, and that they can just be reminded that they are more than the ancestors of people who were enslaved. So, and that is to me, that's what good research will do. It will enlighten and uplift. So that's that. Now, the last book I'm going to talk about is one that I didn't read for the first time this past week. It's a book I'd listened to a while back, but because I've been working on my novel, I have been rereading. I actually listened to it on audio the first time, and because I wanted to actually see the language and absorb it that way, I downloaded it on my Kindle, on my iPad. So the book is called Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. And Vera is a hoot. The book is by the delightfully talented Jessie Q. Sutanto. And one of the things that I really want my book to incorporate is some of the warmth and just affection that you come away feeling after reading this book. I definitely want to unlock the code on how she manages to mine the personal depths of the character without slowing down her pace. Vera is a 60-year-old lonely tea shop owner with an adult son who is out adulting, and she is convinced that he is doing it wrong. So she is constantly interfering, and he is pushing her away, and then she is love bombing him with the most delicious food you can imagine that just makes your mouth water. So my character, my character's name is Emily, and Emily, like Vera, is a 60-year-old woman who is also trying to come to terms with, being older, and, she's got a little bit more family around her, but like Vera, her kids have moved out of the house. One of the things that Sutanto has been able to do is Vera weaponizes her age. She will use it against you. I'm just a poor old lady. You can't be ignoring me. You look me in the eye, eat my food. I mean, it just helps her be demanding. And I think right now my character is maybe a little too demure. So I'm gonna have to put some of that Vera backbone in her if I want her to come across as a, just as a real character who you care for and you want to see succeed. So, I'm not going to try to do it exactly how Jesse did it because Vera is a vastly different character than the character that I've created, Emma Lee. But rereading her book and just thinking about it and dissecting it has allowed me to think about what it is that I really liked about the book, what moved me, why did listening to it really urge me, inspire me to say, hey, maybe it's time you wrote that book about the older lady too. So that is that. Now, I want to ask you, what books have you read recently that have inspired your writing? Please let me know in the comments. I mean, I'm serious. I really want to know. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. But if I read a book that, that I love, that I'm wiggling my toes, I barely remember to sip my drink, I'm just in it. I'm turning the pages. I'm staying up later than I should. Then when I'm done, I just lay there looking at the ceiling, thinking about how to write a book that makes me feel like this author's book just made me feel. So I want to know if you've got books that you have read that have given you that feeling. Please share in the comments, because that would be awesome. Now, I'm going to give you, last week I said I'm going to give you these tips. I didn't give you any tips. I went off in a tangent. I always say I'm not going to do it, but I do it, and my daughter laughs at me. So here are, real quick, 3 tips for new writers. Tip number 1, read your work out loud. Read it aloud. I don't care if you just read it to yourself, if you read it to your partner, if you read it to a friend, if you trap one of your kids in the bathroom and make them listen to it, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter what someone else thinks about it at this stage is secondary. The reason you're reading your work out loud is because sometimes we have the story in our head, but when we write it, it doesn't sound quite right, and we can't figure out what it is. Oftentimes, we become so just so enamored with getting the language right and the punctuation right that your first attempt can come across very stilted, very stiff. I had to learn to break all sorts of grammatical rules, because when you write for kids, you have to listen to kids, and kids don't speak like they just fell out of the dictionary. They don't put their punctuation or their pauses where we grown-ups put our pauses. So you got, as much as you want that comma there, you got to get it out of the way, because you got to show that this sentence is just running on. They're not pausing. They're not, and that's okay, especially in a first draft. So I encourage you, please, 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 read your work aloud. You'll thank me later. Okay, the second is a tip that when I'm doing a workshop, a lot of times with kids, I'll say, write barefoot. And I mean, I'm barefoot because I'm in my bedroom and I'm getting ready to go to bed. And so I'm wearing my jammies. Just gotta wash this stuff off my face. But what I mean by that is to let yourself go. Don't worry about punctuation or spelling or spell check or any of that. If your computer does it automatically, let it have at it. But you stay in here. You just let go. If you live a life where you spend the day being bossed around by your job, again, by your partner, and definitely by your kids, and you just got a life full of rules, I am giving you, Auntie Sherry is giving you a license to just take your shoes off, pick your glass up, take a sip, and go wild, baby. Just go wild. Write whatever you want, whatever you're thinking about, whatever that story is that's in you in its most raw, authentic form. Just let it out. Blah. Don't even worry about it. Just let it out. And the last thing is, don't worry about writing schedules. I see a lot of people, a lot of authors, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know how many of you might be aware of it, but the masterclass series, where they're always advertising, you can learn how to do this, you can be a chef. Serena Williams has something on there about tennis. I mean, Steph Curry is on masterclass about, basketball or how to shoot free throws or whatever. And there are tons of authors on there too who offer courses in different things about writing. And so, you pay the subscription and you have access to all these different people's knowledge for a year. Well, of course, I've had it for about 8 months and I haven't done diddly with it. So now, before it runs out, I've started listening to it. And a lot of the authors will talk about, a schedule. I get up at 4 a.m. I get up at 5. It's the first thing I do in the morning, all of this and other. If you are just trying to start the novel, if you are just beginning, baby, don't worry about the schedule. You write it when you can find time. You write if you only have 15 minutes between when your kids leave for school and you have to leave for work, use them. Use those 15 minutes. Put the scrolling down, the ticky-tock, she'll still be there, all of that other stuff. Turn your phone off for 15 minutes and dive into your story. If you just do that every day, 15 minutes every day, you could be on to something. Trust me, you don't have to keep these tight, rigid deadlines that, again, my early life was as a journalist. I was a journalist for a long, long time, and I had deadlines, but I was the most disciplined, undisciplined writer, reporter there was, because I couldn't create like that. I couldn't sit there for 8 hours looking at that screen. I had to go out. I had to go buy popsicles for the office. I had to go walk around in the mall and think about what I was doing. I had to work it out. It didn't come to me like other authors say, butt in chair. There's a time for butt in chair, but you got to work up to it, because if nothing's coming out, baby, nothing's coming out. So you gotta work into it, and you gotta have the time. You can't always feel like, oh my God, I have to find time to write. No, the writing is the fun time, like your yoga or your step class or whatever. This is a gift to you. This is something your soul needs. Before I started making this video, I was watching just music videos online on YouTube, and Leandra Johnson, I think that's her name, her video came up, and child, when she started singing "Lord Deliver Me," I felt delivered, okay? It just touched my soul, and I want you to feel like that about your writing. Because when I'm really in it, I do. I'm working on a book in verse, and it's my first time doing a book in verse. And that book has taken me to some places, and in the end, I trust that it is going to make me feel like that song made me feel, which is delivered. So I hope I've delivered a good video for you. Please, again, if you can, like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps me with the little algorithm-y thing. Okay, my babies, I have enjoyed this time. I hate to see you go, but it's my bedtime, so See you at the bookstore. Bye-bye.